who are we talking about when we're talking about a party who has defrauded the government from taxpayer funds?
A defendant is always going to be a recipient of government money, either directly or indirectly. And so when I say directly, I mean, as just an easy example, a government contractor, someone who is a big entity. Individuals are also subject to liability, but the Department of Justice, the vast majority of its work is against entities. So government contractors are always directly getting government money when they have a government contract, and they need to perform on those government contracts in accordance with the contractual requirements, the government specifications of the contract, all laws and regulations that apply to the government contract. And so in that example, a government contractor can be a defendant. Also, when I say indirectly, I'm thinking about entities such as pharmaceutical manufacturers. So all of your big drug manufacturers, every one of them is making drugs for patients under the Medicare and Medicaid programs. And there are also other taxpayer government-funded programs for healthcare, like the VA and all federal employees, which is a significant number of people in the United States are covered by the federal healthcare benefits program. So any Medicare, Medicaid, VA, VHB, and TRICARE for military members and their families all are government taxpayer-funded programs. So any entity in the healthcare industry has to comply with the False Claims Act. And again, going back to the indirect entity, a pharmaceutical company, they don't have patients, right? They're not the kind of healthcare provider that is taking care of patients and directly submitting a claim to Medicare for the services they're providing. That doesn't happen. Instead, for example, pharmaceutical manufacturers are making drugs that are then prescribed by a physician and filled at a pharmacy. Just because the pharmaceutical manufacturer is not receiving the money for the patient, they are still subject to and liable under the False Claims Act, because if they commit fraud, they violate rules and regulations, and they do so knowingly, they can cause the physician to prescribe a drug that is a false claim or a pharmacist to fill it. And that's just one example. So, and I use those examples because, again, the False Claims Act is very broad, but a defendant is always going to be an entity that is getting government money directly or indirectly.